Good morning, everyone. My name is Sandeep Singh Nijhawan. I am your today's co-host, and we have Ritu as well. She is also your today's co-host. I would like to extend my warm welcome to all the participants present here for this symposium entitled "Right to Health as Fundamental Right," organized by Tumkur University and DigiSaksham. So, talking about the event, dear colleagues and friends, this pandemic has exposed the deep vulnerabilities of India's healthcare system. Much of this is blamed on India's low expenditure on public health. Another critical reason for a weak public health in India is the absence of statutory framework that guarantees a fundamental right to the health. So there is a need to make the right to health a fundamental right and implement it within the framework of legal advices and human rights principle of solidarity, proportionality, and transparency, which will help India addresses the challenges posed by COVID-19. It is a pleasure to invite you for International Symposium on this auspicious occasion of Human Rights Day. The International Symposium was conceived as a part of collaboration between the Department of Studies and Research in Political Science, Prevention of Sexual Harassment Cell, Tumkur University, and Seams Welfare Foundation. So actually, the Seams Welfare Foundation is a professional not-for-profit company, and it's registered with NITI Aayog, MSME, MPCon, DDUG, and Institute of Entrepreneurship, Uttar Pradesh. Seams is also recognized as a startup by the Department of Industrial Policies and Promotions. Uh, we have a few initiatives known as Fame Leads, which narrates the tales of successful female entrepreneurs with regular workshops and newsletter on women empowerment. Gigi Shaksham is another initiative of Seams Welfare Foundation and has developed content from over 300 courses in multiple languages, which ranges from 4 hours to 6 months in various sectors of IT, BFSI, retail, and many more. So moving ahead, I would like to introduce Dr. Valmiki Ramasir. So actually, he's assistant professor of the Department of Studies and Research in Science. He's from Tumkur University. He has more than 12 years of teaching experience and research experience. He published more than 60 articles presented in conferences, and 90 research articles has been published in national, international journals, edited books, conference, and some of the articles published in journal carry impact factor and index journals. I welcome you, sir. So
Thank
now
you.
over to you,
Thank
sir.
you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Tarandeep. Dr. Malinga K. Is my colleague, assistant professor, working in Department of Studies and Research in Political Science, Tumkur University, Tumkur. On behalf of the Department of Political Science and Tumkur University, I welcome Dr. Malinga K. for this international symposium on right to health as fundamental right. In our presidential address, it's my great pleasure to introduce our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Colonel Professor Y.S. Siddegowda, Tumkur University, Tumkur, for this international symposium. On behalf of Department of Political Science and Tumkur University, I welcome you, sir, for this international symposium. And to brief about his biodata, he is a very enthusiastic academician as well as the administrator in our university, where he has implemented a very good number of policies, and he is also a chairman of National Education Policy 2020, which has been introduced in Karnataka as well as in Tumkur University also. It has been introduced on war food, and he has national international awards to his credit, and he has completed 17 research projects while working in Mysore University under the professorship in the Department of Social Work, Mysore University, Mysore. On behalf of Department of Political Science, we welcome you, sir, for this international right as fundamental right. I also welcome Dr. Niraj Kumar, research head of ACMS, DigiSaksham. So to brief about his introduction, he has a research experience since he got his PhD in applied mathematics on topic matrix techniques in data mining, and he also He also have several research experience as well as research-based experience in mathematical statistical software such as MATLAB, mathematics, EVs, TI education, teaching technology, GeoGebra. And Dr. Nitendra Kumar also presented research papers in national and international papers, and he has authored 2 books on engineering mathematics for undergraduate engineers and 6 books on applied mathematics for engineering diploma. For the last several years, Kumar has been working for the amelioration of underprivileged and socially and economically backward students. Dr. Nitendra Kumar, through his several years of meticulous research, has developed methodologies to augment the knowledge of mathematics and general science among students. Dr. Kumar has been working relentlessly to achieve his vision to educate, perpetuate, and enrich the students with the knowledge of mathematics, irrespective of their background, and making India a world guru in mathematics. So on behalf of Department of Political Science at Tumkur University and Saksham sir, so we welcome you for this international symposium. So next, coming to the main persons who are going to present one lecture. 2 lectures will be presented by the renowned scientists, social scientists. So one is Dr. Surendra Kumar SY. So he is associate professor working in Department of Political Science, Bangalore University, Bangalore. Since he got graduated as well as he got his PhD, Doctor of Philosophy from Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. He has published many publications in international and national publications like Routledge, elsewhere. We have good number of publications in these areas like international relations, comparative politics, as well as the rural development aspect, even particularly concentrating towards the fundamental rights and right to health, which has been selected as a topic for his presentation for this international symposium. On behalf of Political Science and Disease Saksham sir, we welcome this international symposium.
Thank you very much.
Now, one more social scientist, I can say that young researcher who is Dr. Reva Singh, who is also here going to present on the same topic, which will be covered on loss of health and fundamental rights, as well as the human rights topic. Dr. Reva has earned her bachelor's with science honors and Master of Science in Anthropology from Hansraj College, University of Delhi. She had a doctorate in social sciences from Gautam Buddha University, Uttar Pradesh. She presented research papers, numerous research papers, and published numerous research papers in refereed national and international journals and conferences. She possesses international exposure as a mentor with the Economics Students Association at the University of South Pacific. Completed in training and leadership development, reputed small business development. The international stature includes like visiting academician, Daikin University, Ponds, Victoria, Australia, and a visit scholar at the University of South Pacific, Fiji, respectively. She is serving as an honorary member in a few non-governmental organizations. She also has served as assistant professor in sociology at Maharishi Law College, Maharishi University of Information Technology, Noida, Uttar Pradesh. Teaching social sciences and law subject to undergraduate students, taking LLM classes in the methodology in order to provide high skills for the students so that they could join higher studies in PhD's level. As a member of various committees, she has a research, legal aid publications, and co-curriculum activities, etc. She has also been discharged very important duties and responsibilities attached to the committees. So on behalf of Disease Saksham and Tumkur University and Department of Political Science, ma'am, Dr. Reva Singh, we welcome you for this international symposium on right to health as fundamental rights. Now, one more important person who is I can tell you that he is the backbone of this particular international symposium, Dr. Atul Gaud, who is a technically sophisticated and business savvy senior management professional with 10+ years experience in the areas of delivery, program management, quality management, change management activities, key account management, skill development, entrepreneurship, business development, operations, and project management. Atul possesses extensive exposure to the comprehensive range of team management activities, working in diverse teams and challenging environment, operations, government projects, marketing and sales, and project management. Prior to ACMS Group, he was associated with GEMS Group, ICFE, KDP, MGA, etc. He has conducted various awareness programs and workshops in the field of digital marketing, financial and digital literacy programs, and authorship development across various institutions and universities. He is a certified trainer from Government of India for conducting entrepreneurship trainings. We have for Tumkur University and Digital Sakshat, Atul Garg, welcome for you for this international symposium on right to health as fundamental right. This is what the delegates who are involved in this international symposium. Now I will hand over the mic to the Tarandeep Singh to carry on the next schedules.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. So now moving ahead, I would like to call Ms. Shivani Agarwal ma'am for introductory note. She's an assistant professor at Chandigarh University. Her department is AIT in CSE. Ms. Shivani Agarwal ma'am is pursuing advanced postgraduate certificate in artificial intelligence and machine learning from IIT Kanpur, UP, India. She has received her BTech degree in information technology from Kurukshetra University, Haryana in 2006 and MTech in information technology from Karnataka University in 2011. She's also a member of CSI. Her area of expertise is in artificial intelligence, machine learning, soft computing, deep learning, and theory of computation, and many more. I welcome you, ma'am. Now it's over to you.
Thank you, Tarandeep ji, for welcoming me on. I really am very glad on the behalf of Sense Welfare Foundation. I'm really happy and glad to be a part of such a informative and very important symposium today on the eve of International Human Rights Day. And as Tarandeep ji also told all the audience about what the Sense Welfare Foundation is, let me just introduce this organization a little bit more so that we'll be aware the kind of work we are doing in the field of entrepreneurship and the skill development, basically for the rural and the underprivileged society and for the young people like the students on the engineering community. And basically we are into the field of area of entrepreneurship, and we are very much focused on the bringing entrepreneurship in the today's youth, basically in female workforce. And as Tarandeep ji also told about, that Sense Welfare Foundation is a non-profit company registered back in 2013, and we deals in various fields, and the few flagship programs which may concern you a lot about, and those flagship programs we dealing is the Families and Digi Saksham. Basically, Digi Saksham is a program where we have just bringing skilling to the student community for the entrepreneurship and for the further skilling of their knowledge in the area of digitalness and area of the complete buzzwords nowadays. The computer industry is like the machine learning and artificial intelligence. And under Digi Saksham, we have created more than 300 courses, that in multiple languages, regional languages also, and with the duration of 4 hours to 6 months in various sectors, so that people at their home can improve their skills by using those. And there is one more program that is called Families. That program is basically towards organizing, bringing the awareness of the rights and the kind of skillings required, the kind of entrepreneurship training required, basically in the female workforce. And through the Families, we have impacted on the behalf of Sense we have impacted almost the lives of thousands of women from the area of Rajasthan, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, and we deals with in the career guidance, and we deals with in the skilling up the projects in the digital marketing and travel and tourism, construction, retail, finance, even handicrafts, apparel, so that we can bridge the gap between the high income group and the low income group by providing the skillings and the platforms to project their skills and produce the product out of the handicrafts and in the tourism industries also. Along with that, we also deals with, we are also in the area of creating conferences so that we can bring up the people on a single platform where they can where we can have a beautiful and intelligent mind together, working in different research areas. And in that particular vertical, we had organized almost 6 international conferences, and which brought us the latest technologies all together on the same platform. We've also, during the COVID time, the SEMS comes as a barrier, which by organizing, SEMS has beautifully done is duty back to the society in the Corona COVID time period, and organized almost 100 camps in rural areas and in Uttar Pradesh basically, and a bit of Haryana and Rajasthan, dealing with the what we can say, the vaccination and kind of things. And what we feel as a SEMS is like awareness of the human rights, and along with that, along with the awareness, the kind of skillings required to uplift our knowledge, uplift our skills is very much required. So as a SEMS Welfare Foundation, we firmly believe in bringing up the awareness of human rights, and firmly bringing up believes in skilling and enhancing and polishing our knowledge. We definitely welcome and thank you very much for inviting us and being a part with the Tumkur University. And with this introductory part on the SEMS, I would really like and would invite everybody present there, all the audience, if you really need some help in the field of entrepreneurship, or in the field of in the area of upskilling the skills and enhancing your skills in the area of what we can say, the artificial intelligence and all the digitalizations and all the web development areas, and even in the tours and travelers and the hospitality industries, please, you can be associated with us. Thank you so much. And we're looking forward for such a informative and important symposium today. Thank you. Thank you, Tarandeep.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your kind words. Thank you so much, ma'am. Now I would like to call Dr. Mahalinga sir for the introductory note.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Good morning to all of you. Today, the DG Saxam and the Department of Studies and Research in Political Science, Tumkur Institute, Tumkus, these conjointly organize this kind of international symposium on right to health as fundamental rights. The health is a most important, and at the same time, it is more important for everyone. In this perspective, we look into the topic and we have to discuss. It is more relevant and important for everyone. So that is the reason why health is a fundamental right. Now, everyone has a right to protect their health, and we can also expect from the government, because the government is give some all kinds of assurance to the people and all kinds of protection to the people, because right is very important for everyone. This is the most relevant and most important. So in this perspective, because in the era of globalizations, in the era of liberalizations, the health has become commercialization. So that is the reason why the Constitution has given us a rights, Constitution has given us a fundamental rights. In this perspective, we look into the topics. These today they are two eminent speakers who is going to speak on health, right to health as fundamental right. This is from the different perspectives. So that is the reason why. So these institutions they are come forward to organize this kind of symposium. So in this perspective, I will thank both the institutions and organizers for giving me an opportunity to speak few words. Thank you, one and all, for everyone.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much
Okay,
for your kind words.
What do you say?
Okay, thank you, sir. Now I would like to call Dr. Nitendra Kumar, sir. He's a research head in SEAMS Group.
Thank you so much, Tarandeep ji. So on the behalf of SEMS Welfare Foundation, a very good morning to all. As we know, today SEMS and Tumkur University is organizing such types of wonderful international symposium on the topic health is a fundamental right. So in this pandemic period, we've seen a lot such types of symposiums are very, very useful for our society. So the initiative of the university and SEAMS organizing today a very wonderful symposium. So this symposium depends on all the participants. So especially, firstly, I want to thank all the participants from the India and the abroad. So this international symposium plays an important role in our society. So I will not take a much more time because the time is already to be related as per the given time. So once again, I welcome to all the participant organizers, and especially you and your team to working on this international symposium since last couple of days. So I hand over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Now, guys, moving ahead for presidential addresses, I would like to call Colonel Professor Y.S. Siddhagora, sir. He's a Vice Chancellor in Tumkur University.
Good morning, friends. I appreciate the Department of Political Science and Digi Saksham and the Prevention of Sexual Harassment Cell, Tumkur University, for organizing an international symposium on this very pertinent topic. This year's Human Rights Day theme, equality, reducing inequality and advancing human rights, reflects the clarion call for that inclusiveness and access to all societies on an equal footing. This theme for 21 relates to all human beings are born free and equal dignity. It is clearly mentioned in the Constitution that man is an object of self-respect, not because of any other consideration, but by the very fact that man is deserved for all the respect. And also that it is clearly mentioned in the Constitution, the means of production shall not be concentrated in the hands of very few, but it should be amicably distributed. On this aspect, that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity. On this day, the United Nations calls on countries to create equal opportunity for all the people and to address issues of inequality, exclusion. At the heart of human rights lay the principles of equality and non-discrimination, aligned with the 2030 agenda, addressing and finding solutions for deep-rooted forms of discrimination that have affected the most vulnerable people in societies, including health, which is at the core of human rights. Universal health coverages is founded upon the notion that health is a human right, an entitlement not as a commodity, and that the progressive realization of the right to health can be accessed by the expansion of priority services, the inclusion of more people. Affordable health facilities should reach marginalized people, and this equity-oriented, people-centered approach to expanding access to health seeks to protect disadvantaged populations from financial improvement, ensuring good quality services for all. Health is a relative state in which one is able to function well physically, mentally, socially, and spiritually to express the full range of one's that unique potentialities within the environment in which one lives. Friends, we all know how that the wellness connect with the success. Health is everything. Health is wealth. So to maintain a good health, it is the basic, the functions of any democratic country, any country for that matter, to ensure physical, mental, moral, emotional, and spiritual well-being, for which that the state concerned shall make all arrangement for creating conducive atmosphere, for which that the in the constitution, the directive principles of state policy, we all know that the part 4 that provides a basic that for the right to health, where that every individual can that ask, demand for health. That is why that in India use the democratic setup, that lot of that impetus is given for health. That you all know that right to health means a person's right to remain healthy and to be able to access all the health care, which also includes that the preventive health care such as the adequate food, water, sanitation, environment, and all other requirements for preventing illness and promoting health. Health must be looked at in a holistic way, as the World Health Organization, you all know that WHO defines health as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. Right to health is something that is justiciable and which holds the system to account that it provides care. You all know that it is not just that giving that the facilities are taking that action as a preventive measures or curative measures or rehabilitative measures or developmental. It is a combination of all. When we speak of health, it shall be the duty of the state to take that the measures to cure the diseases, whatever the magnitude, whatever the intensity, and also to take the precaution by preventing it, so that disease will not occur. Prevention is always that the better than the cure. Before that the ailment, if they take that the measures to prevent it, it is better. What that otherwise that we believe strongly in it. And also it is not just that attending only to it should combine with the rehabilitation. Rehabilitation speaks of that the people who are affected by that shall be taken care of by way of the rehabilitation, depending upon the magnitude of the problem. And it will not end just by creating the situation where that a kind of harm is given. Because in the Constitution, it is clearly mentioned that man is an object of self-respect. So the situation shall be created so that people with using their potentiality come up and stand up on their own, so that the developmental activities where that human resources, the quality human resources are that developed in a way where that the person can think that his or her that the needs and necessities and attain out of their capacities. Such a situation that is the duty of the government to create. We need a fundamental shift in our approach to healthcare now, based on what just I spoke on through the developmental activities. The COVID-19 has changed our perspective regarding the fragility of the health and the need of the robust healthcare systems. We all are experiencing, not just experienced, even the third wave that through Omicron that is actually that standing on the threshold. So both central government as well as the state government is taking that adequate measures through that the introduction of preventive measures. Investment in health, instead of viewing it as a spending, has to be seen as a highly hidden investment that can considerably cut down future out-of-pocket cost and also increase output. The evidence is before us today, friends, as we have dealt with a moment that the monumental health crisis with a crumbling healthcare system. We are witnessing its grave economic impact. What a kind of turmoil that the COVID-19 has created. It is not just a COVID-19. Since from the human evolution that we have been experiencing all contagious diseases over a period of time, and that the human being through their that the potentiality would able to sustain and emerge as a victorious and proceed further. Now that we are in the era where that the science, technology, and other these things are developed disproportionately to combat any such that the threat to live happy. We risk finding our children in the same situations. You know that all these things. According to economic survey, what was conducted recently in India, that 65% of the overall health expenditure is out of pocket, which is very high as compared to the world average of just 18.2%. Where is 65%? Where is 18%? Just to think of. It observed that the bulk of the healthcare in India is provided by the private sector, which is more expensive than the government facilities. Though it is the responsibility of the government side by side that the private this thing also. Our constitution is clearly says that along with the government, even voluntary organizations, non-governmental organizations, and philanthropists can that extend their arms in alleviating the problems which exist at individual level, at family level, at the community level. So really that health in India is a luxury that can be afforded by a rich and those in the mainstream. The marginalized who face more vulnerability due to poor housing, lack of inadequate sanitation, use of that biomass as fuel, however, that are still away from the health that equity. According to the experts, COVID-19, that a pandemic should be a wake-up call, an alarm bell for universal access to health in the country, where it is still a luxury and not a right. Human rights and sustainable development are correlated to sustainable development goals in the sense that human rights are driven by progress on all the SDGs, and SDGs are driven by advancement on human rights, lack of access to primary care services. Hindrances to good health includes that the poor economy, high unemployment rates, and limited economic resources, high rates of under insurance, cultural differences that may pose challenges such as social, cultural, and linguistic barriers that may prevent patient from accessing care. That we have been that experiencing all these things because of the heterogeneity that which prevails in India. Redefining health also requires a focus on quality improvement, population health management, and the shift from the volume to value. Ultimately, this transformation will foster seamless coordination of care and integration of services to manage populations effectively, which leads to better outcomes and value of our patients and healthcare providers. I feel strongly that quality and performance improvements are a crucial and a critical answer to addressing the environmental shift and challenges in healthcare. Providing high quality care is a goal that will not waver even as the structure of the national healthcare system is in flux, as it is the cornerstone of health care organizations. To provide vulnerable communities and the hospitals that serve them with the tools necessary to determine what the essential healthcare services they should strive to maintain locally or and what delivery systems options will allow them to do so. It is more important than ever that hospitals and other healthcare that organizations build and maintain strong linkages with a diverse group of community stakeholders to ensure that the needs of vulnerable communities are supported in the future. Collaboration through community health assessments and other that strategic endeavors will be vital as a fundamental for the identifying health priorities and aligning efforts to address them. In addition, hospitals and other community stakeholders will need to work together to identify barriers that could prevent populations from achieving good health. Unite around shared goals and work collaboratively to implement challenges that promote a healthier community while also developing a sustainable business model. Improving access to care and the value of care in vulnerable communities will involve developing innovative ways to use limited resources and to transform care for changing the communities. United Nations says that human rights should be at the center of the post-COVID-19 world. The pandemic that wreaked havoc on everyone and the resulting crisis fueled poverty, inequality, and discrimination. According to the UN Human Rights Council, we must take steps to close these gaps in order to rebuild a world that is better, more resilient, and more sustainable. Human rights have brought the world together in unprecedented solidarity over the past 74 years, recognizing the inherent dignity of every person as an imperative for global health. December 10 is the Human Rights Day in commemoration of the 74th anniversary of the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. We all know, friends. While we celebrate the ensuring that legacies of human rights, we must also strive to identify and rectify the constraints on human rights based that governance for public health in a globalizing world. It is more important than ever for the health and human rights communities to stand together as partners to uphold the values of the United Declaration of Human Rights and resist the contemporary threats to human rights. The human rights progress of the past, bringing together top-down leadership in global health governance with bottom-up civil society advocacy, highlights the importance of sustained political engagement to realize the rights to health. Health practitioners have a crucial role in this political engagement, advancing right-based public health policies programs and practices that are essential to secure the future of human rights in global health. Human rights are based on the powerful idea of equal dignity for all people. By establishing international standard for health justice, human rights have been transformed from the theoretical to the actionable as legal obligations have been developed to realize the highest attainable standards. Friends, I conclude by quoting Mahatma Gandhiji's talisman. Whenever you are in doubt or when the self becomes too much with you, apply the following test. Recalls the face of the poorest and the weakest man whom you may have seen and ask yourself if the step that you contemplate is going to be of any use to him. Let this be our guiding light. I wish the symposium all the success. Thank you very much for an opportunity to interact with say that participants. It shows that the 75 again that it will be in YouTube and Facebook. The number that we can see only after some time how many of them have participated in this important symposium. I thank one and all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your kind words. Thank you so much, sir. And we have more than 100 participants in YouTube as well. So now moving ahead, I would like to call Dr. Surendra Kumar, sir, for lecture 1. Now over to you, sir.
Okay, good morning to one and all. Okay, so basically, firstly, I would like to thank the organizers for giving me an opportunity to speak on this topic, and also thank them and congratulate them for choosing such a very important topic on a very important and auspicious day. Firstly, I would like to extend my thanks to the Vice Chancellor of Tumkur University, Siddhegowda sir, and the organizers of Department of Political Science, particularly Ramakrishna sir, then Basavaraja sir, Malinga sir, and all the others from Tumkur University, and also the co-organizers who are also very important from Digi Saksham. All the team members from Digi Saksham, I think, have taken a very good initiative, and your contribution. And today, I came to many things, the good works have been doing. So it's really very encouraging for us also to be part of this kind of initiative in near future also. With these few words now, I'll directly come to my presentation. So basically, I've divided my presentation into 4 important sections, short sections. The first section I'll be focusing on what is exactly right to health, because generally we believe that right to health is all about only accessing. It is much beyond that. So there's an inclusive definition which talks about what constitutes right to health. And the second section I'll be focusing on why India has not been successful in terms of translating this right to health into a fundamental right. Although we are celebrating 75 years of India's independence, despite that, still we are not able to reach this target of declaring right to health as a fundamental right. What are the reasons that we will find out? Then the other important section I'll be focusing on is what is the need, why there is a need to have the right to health or incorporate in the Indian Constitution or declare it as a fundamental right. What are the necessary reasons or crucial reasons why we have to focus on this one? And the final is what is the way out, how things need to be changed in order to ensure we realize this kind of right. So basically, firstly, as we all know, I'll begin with the first section, that is what constitutes right to health. So as I told you, all of us believe that right to health means basically it all talks about accessing healthcare system and other things. But if you see the World Health Organization in 1946, so it was the first organizations after the post-Cold War, Second World War, we could see that they played a very critical role in emphasizing the right to health. So basically, the WHO emphasizes that basically we talked about there is a need for attaining highest standard of health as a fundamental right for all the human beings. So it was a very universal approach which the WHO came up. It also talked about why it is necessary to for the state, it's legally binding on the state to ensure that these rights are attained. And not just right to health means basically accessible. It talks about timely, acceptability, and also affordability. These are the 3 components which the WHO emphasized and why it was incorporated. Similarly, if you see the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, 1948, so that Article 25 also talks about why right to health is also should be a key component in what we call standard of living. So when we talk about standard of living, we only talk about the economic aspects and the other aspects. But here, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights clearly emphasized on the need of putting the health also as a factor in measuring the standard of living. But the more inclusive definition we have got from the UN Commission for Human Rights. So that gives a very comprehensive, inclusive definition. So for them, for the United Nations agency, this the right to health, it means basically, it talks about a very inclusive definition of what is right to health. So the inclusive definition includes right to health, not just accessing affordability. It also talks about basically what we can say, safe drinking water, safe food, nutrition, and also it talks about the health information and education, which is also very key component of that one. It also talks about gender equality. It talks about housing. It talks about nutrition, food. So several aspects are part of this, what we call the right to health. So generally, right to health includes all this component: food, nutrition, housing, drinking water, sanitation, then also important education and information on health aspect, and above all is the gender equality. Then apart from this, also talks about the right to health is also connected with the freedom that is free from not forceful treatment or forceful experiment also. So that freedom is there. And apart from this, more critical factor is non-discriminatory. So basically, the right to health should be non-discriminatory, whether it is based on gender, race, or nationality, or geography. Name it, everything should be non-discriminatory. So overall, the overall emphasis of the UN Commission on Human Rights talks about right to health should be basically what they call AAAQ, that is, it should be available, it should be adequate, it should be accessible, and at the same time, also most important, the quality matters. So right to health is all about not just providing health facilities, but the quality also becomes the core aspect. So overall, if you see among the UN members, more than 50% of the countries have this right to health, or they have universal healthcare, free healthcare system. But only few countries have incorporated in their respective constitutions. In the South Asia, we can see only Nepal is only one country which has incorporated right to health in its constitution way back in 2007. All the other countries like Sri Lanka or Maldives and other countries, there is a struggle to ensure that right to health becomes an important component of fundamental right or part of the constitution. So in India, we are yet to achieve this. Now we'll come to the second section that I'll focus on why in India the right to health has not become a reality. So before getting into the aspect of why it has not become a reality, I think it's very important for all of us to keep in mind that there is a growing demand from 1950s till now. You can see there's a growing demand to make right to health as an important fundamental right in the Indian Constitution. But from the 1990s onwards, you can see there is a lot of voices coming across party lines, coming across the activists and other aspects. So we'll try to focus one by one, we can see. So basically, it was in 2009, for the first time, that the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare had come up with the Health Rights Bill, which was put upon its website for the feedback from the citizens and the other activists. But it was there on the website for a couple of months, and later it was removed. So nobody knows actually the reasons why that bill did not see the light, or why the bill did not come to the debate in the parliament. So, but nevertheless, the efforts were made in that context, we can see. Then apart from this, also from time to time, we can see several chief ministers of several states in Karnataka have always argued for declaring the right to health as a fundamental right, whether it is Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, whether it is the Chief Minister of Chhattisgarh, and also more recently, we can see the Chief Minister of Rajasthan, Ashok Gehlot, also talked about or urged the center to declare the right to health as a fundamental right in the upcoming parliamentary session. So that's so several chief ministers from different parties are also in favor of this one. Then we can also see that if you see the party manifesto, if you see the party manifestos also, we can see Congress in the 2014 Lok Sabha election. In the manifesto, it clearly emphasized on that if voted to power, we will ensure that there is right to health. Like they provided right to information, then you also have right to food, which is the National Security Food Security Act. Similarly, we can see they argued in 2014 elections and 2019 elections that right to health, we are going to work on that one. That was the part of the Congress party manifesto. Although BJP has also talked about the access to healthcare, access to infrastructure and other things, basic facilities of the health at free of cost, but nevertheless, there's nothing short of declaring it as a right to health. So BJP manifesto also carries on issues or various schemes on how they're going to improve the health structure or infrastructure, health system within the country. But there is the having core issues of the manifesto itself is one of the good progress we can see, why right to health becomes very important and significant we can see. Then from time to time, several MPs, members of parliament, particularly from the Rajya Sabha, also have taken several initiatives where they have tried to introduce a bill or suggest the parliamentarians or suggest the prime minister to come up with this bill on right to health. So if you see chronologically, we can see, for example, it was only in 2017, December 2017, that we can see the Rajya Sabha MP from the YSR Congress, that is Vijay Sai Reddy. So he basically introduced a bill in the Rajya Sabha urging the parliamentarians to insert the Article 21B in the Indian Constitution, which will provide right to health, because 21A talks about right to education, 21B was supposed to be focusing on right to health. With similar lines, we can see one of the MPs from Assam. He is also from Assam. He is also BJP MP from Assam. So basically, he wanted to project what is called Bhupen Bora. So he wanted to come up with a bill, and he also urged the parliamentarians to come up with a bill on right to health to be declared as a fundamental right. Then you have also Congress MP, again in Rajya Sabha, Abhishek Manu Singhi, also tried to come up with a bill which is called Universal Free Healthcare Bill. In the 2019, he tried to place in the Rajya Sabha, because these are all private members' bills which never get passed in the parliament, because you need 2/3 majority if you want to bring in any amendment in the constitution, and private member bills have very limited scope of translating into a law. And more recently, we can see the DMK MP Ravi Kumar from Villipuram. I think he also came up with this bill he introduced in the Rajya Sabha, saying that during the emergency period, everybody should have free access to healthcare, and more importantly, this bill, right to health, should be declared as a fundamental right. So the point I'm trying to say is several politicians cutting across party lines, sitting MPs, particularly from Rajya Sabha, have emphasized on right to health. It's not that nothing has happened, there is one. But apart from this, we always have the health activists who are playing a very important and critical role in bringing awareness about how pathetic the health system is and what needs to be done. So they're all always been pitching for declaring the right to health as a fundamental right, whether it's at the global level or at the national level, we can see. And even there is People's Movement for Health. It's a group of organizations focusing on health. So they also have always talked about that why right to health should be, there should be a constitutional provision on this regard. And more recently, we can see in June 2021, the Nobel Peace Prize winner, Kailash Satyarthi, also pitched in for converting this right to health into a full-fledged fundamental right, which is not only going to transform the healthcare system, also ensure that people life expectancy, the death which are happening of lack of nutrition also can be overcome. So that's why it becomes important. Not just the health activists, politicians and chief ministers, even though government reports, for example, the 15th Finance Commission report, they had constituted a committee which was called as the High Level Group Committee on Health Sector. And Devi Shetty from Karnataka, a well-known celebrated doctor, was also part of this committee. And they made two important recommendations in September 2019. So the report talked about two important recommendations. One is, that is, the right to health should be made as a fundamental right. Constitutional provision should be made for it. Second thing is, the health is always a state subject as per the constitution. That should be moved to the concurrent list. So that's also that there will be a coordination between the union and the state, and things can move in a better way. So these are the critical recommendations that have been made. So and apart from this, also we can see our National Human Rights Commission. So keeping in mind the COVID-19 impact and the negative impact, the number of deaths and number of people infected. So National Human Rights Commission also in May 2021 had issued an advisory to all the state governments and also the union territory that to work towards ensuring that right to health becomes a reality, and the health, everybody should have access to health, and all kinds of facilities should be provided, keeping in mind the second wave of COVID-19. So National Human Rights Commission is also in favor of this one. And more recently, we can see that one of the private leading universities in India, that OP Global Jindal University, also came up with the draft bill, which is now in circulation. So they also came up with that bill in the 2021 more recently, Right to Health and Healthcare Bill. So this is basically developed by the private university on the directions of the Economic Advisory Council of Prime Minister. So they have come up with 101 clause, and basically they have also, it's a 54-page document, which is a very important and interesting one. It is already in circulation, but many people have criticized this, saying that it has come up from private university, it has not come from the Ministry of Health, Union Ministry of Health, and apart from this, there is no legal binding on the state to implement these kinds of provisions. So nevertheless, there's a good efforts that at least our university has taken the initiative of coming up with this bill, which is now in circulation and which can be widely debated and discussed, we can see. So overall, the point, and it is also basically the private university bill also, which is focusing on all the international provisions are incorporated in this one. So overall, these are the efforts have been made to ensure right to health becomes a reality. So now I'll tell you 2-3 reasons why the right to health has not become a reality. There are several reasons for it why right to health has not been made as a fundamental right despite 75 years of India's independence. The first is important thing is that the health as a factor or an issue has never been very critical issue for the government, successive government, whichever party, has not been a very critical factor for the simple reason that voters have not voted on the basis of the performance of the government particularly on the health sector. How well they have performed on the health sector, they have not discussed over it. Or if you see whether they are not rewarded also, they bought back the government because they have been supported them or they have worked on the health aspect, excluding the COVID-19 period, you can see. So excluding that issue, you can see several period, health has never been an important issue. Second thing is that health also has never been an important issue for the voters and for the political parties. So never been a health election issue. Only in the recent times, we could see in the by-elections where BJP, or there was a setback for the BJP, many people tend to say that the performance of the BJP at the state level and the central level had cost them, particularly on fighting COVID-19, had resulted. But overall, if you see in the election issues, generally the caste factor, religious factor, or the personality factors, and the other issues which have been said by the media, and we know what behind the media has been debatable issues on this front. So health has never been an important factor. That is the reason why, unlike the American elections, where health becomes a very critical issue, whichever time we can take it up, you can be there on the Western countries, but in India it is not the case, we can see. Then apart from this, also third thing, reasons why is that because there is a lot of scope for the private sector in the health sector. I think one of the big businesses are there in the health sector and the education sector. So keeping that in mind, many people tend to argue or allege that it's the private sector which is not allowing the government to come up with this kind of right to health as a fundamental right, because they want to make more profit, which are all commercially driven. So the success of the public healthcare system will have an impact on the private sector. So there is a lobby and other things to ensure that the health sector remains weak, vulnerable, so that they'll be able to progress, because we know that 60% of the hospitals which are there are private, and most of the people access the private hospital more than the rural, the public healthcare sectors. In rural, it might be high, but in urban sector, more people go into the private sector. So the point is that the private sectors are also playing an important role or a negative role in terms of preventing government from coming up with this kind of ambitious programs, which will have a negative impact. Even the NITI Aayog report in 2019 came up with an important report on investment opportunities for the private sectors in the India's health sector. So that's where they're trying to pitch in the private sector to play an important role. Although several chief ministers of the country have always talked about the role of the private sectors, but role of the private sector is important, but not in the public, not at the cost of the public hospitals, not at the cost of the public doctors and other things. So nevertheless, the private sector also is playing a kind of a role to ensure its own success at the cost of the public. Fourth important thing is many of the government officials and the politicians tend to argue that there are several schemes which the government offering. At the state level, at the national level, you can find every government is offering several schemes for the poor people or on the health with regard to the improving their health standards, improving to making health as an accessible and other things. Like for example, you have Ayushman Bharat. Several schemes are there for pregnant women. Several schemes are for fighting the different kinds of diseases, prevention, accessing insurance policies are there of the government. But all the things are fine. There are several policies of the state and the center, but all are fine. But the point is that they have a limitation at the same time. They cannot compensate to what is right to health. Right to health is a more inclusive and it's a different, and by schemes cannot be useful to compensate for the right to health. So that context, these are the reasons why right to health has taken a long time. It's still yet to be realized, but I'm very confident that in near future it might happen. Now I'll come to the third section, like why there's a need for right to health to be made a fundamental right. So why in India we should make the right to health as a fundamental right? What are the reasons? The first reason is that we know that there is serious shortfall of workforce. In a country like India, there is a serious shortfall of workforces. This has been also acknowledged by the 15th Finance Commission, which came up with a report and talked about how there is a serious shortage of workforce. For example, if you see what the WTO and WHO recommends and what is there in reality, you can find the gap. For example, with regard to doctor, WHO talks about the ratio should be 1:1,000 population. But in India, it is 1:511. If we talk about nurses, it talks about 1:300. But in India, it is to 1:670. And there are serious shortage of nurses in states like UP, Bihar, or Uttarakhand, or Jharkhand, Telangana, and Sikkim also. So that is also there. And if you see the number of beds per population, so WHO recommends 5 beds for 1,000 population, you can see, whereas in India it is just 1.4. WHO, World Health Organization, recommends 5 beds per 1,000, but in India it is just 1.4, and 60% of these beds are available in the private sector, not in the government sectors, we can see. Compared to other countries, if you see China, it is 4 beds per 1,000. And if you see UK and US and Sri Lanka, it is 3. And if you see Brazil and Russia, it is 2. And where even our own, the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Health and Family Welfare 2020 report talks about that it is 0.5 beds per 1,000 population. So it's a very discouraging scenario with regard to the workforce. Even the NITI Aayog report on sustainable development goals, because we all know that the third goal of the sustainable development is the health and wellness, and there also the indicators and the NITI Aayog report clearly indicates that healthcare workers, there is serious shortage of healthcare workers. There are only Kerala has the highest number of healthcare workers. So it talks about for every 10,000, there should be at least 45 healthcare workers. But in reality, only 6 states have 45 and above healthcare workers for 10,000 population. Kerala has 114. But again, the states which are very less than 15, it is again UP, Bihar, and then Jharkhand and Chhattisgarh. Some of the other states, including some of the southern states, are lacking behind when it comes to the healthcare workers vis-a-vis population also, we can see. Then apart from this, more than 70% of the population do not have any health insurance. So only the remaining have the health insurance, but majority of them do not have access to the health insurance or do not have health insurance itself. That's one of the drawbacks because we are spending out of the pocket. So as already the Vice Chancellor also talked about that aspect. So not having health insurance is also one of the drawbacks. That's where we require all the things. So every government report, private sector's report clearly indicate the prevailing inequality in the health sector. So this is one of the important reasons why the right to health should be declared as a fundamental right. The second important reason is when it comes to the spending on health. So we compare with the other countries, we can see India spends very little on the health and education and also on the housing sector, we can see. So according to the 2020 World Bank data on the spending on health, we can see America is one of the #1 country which spend more on health. It spends around 17% of its GDP. And if you see countries like France and Germany spends around 11%, UK and Japan spends around 10%, Brazil spends around close to 10%, 9.5%, South Africa around 8%, even a small country like Jamaica spends around 6% of its GDP on health, and Russia and China 5 to 6% they spend. India spend only 3.56% of their GDP on health. Even fortunately, this year's Union Budget 2021, we can see that the total Union Budget 1.68% was allocated for health sector. So that was a welcome move. But overall, if you see the health spending has always been low from the Indian government point of view. And if you see the overall global ranking or ratings, so India's priority in the Union Budget is also very less. India ranked 179 of 189 in terms of prioritizing the spending on health in the government budget. So there also we are lacking. Human Development Report, you can see on the health, again we are lacking there. So several ways we are lacking. So that's the reason why we need to have this right to health as an important fundamental right. Then if you see one of the recent report by Oxfam, which talks about the India's inequality report of 2021, that is India's unequal health story, which clearly comes up with a very interesting and a very significant issues reality that is there, which is common. I think it's not surprising for all of us who are living in India. That is, they argue that the most of the marginalized communities do not have access to healthcare. All those who are socially, economically high standard of living, they have better access to healthcare. But the marginalized community, particularly SC, ST, and OBCs, do not have access to healthcare system. The rich people have access to healthcare system. The poor do not have. Even the religious wise, Hindus have more access to healthcare system. The Muslims do not have. Even in the urban people have more access. Rural people do not have. Men have more access to healthcare system. Women do not have. So these are the wide gap, whether it is on gender, whether it is region wise, whether it is on the caste wise, whether it is on the religious lines, you can find there is a wide gap. So these reports, we can say it is from the private sector, but that is a reality which we have to accept. So that is precisely the reason to reduce the gap, to increase the spending, to increase the workforce. For all those things, I think right to health should be declared as a fundamental right. Then the other important reason why it has to be done is that we cannot completely depend upon the private sector. Private sector is important in every sector. They also contribute a lot in nation building. It's not that India has become a global player just because of the government initiative. It is also because of the private sector. But the health sector, which is very commercially driven, profit oriented by the private sectors, the government cannot afford to depend upon the private sector to run the health sector. So government has to chip in, government also has to strengthen the physical infrastructure in the lot of public healthcare centers, government hospitals. There are a lot of improvements are happening, but a lot more needs to be done. So private sectors can be involved as a contributory factor in terms of developing the public healthcare center rather than an independent entity developing the private sector, private healthcare sector. So that kind of coordination is required. So that is there. So these are the reasons why I feel that there's a need for right to health to be declared as a fundamental right. Now I come to the last sections of my presentation. What is the way forward? So I'll just try to summarize in 3 minutes. The first important thing is that the most important aspect we have to keep in mind that although the right to health has become an important debate and discussion, which is on the agenda of the government, but we have to keep in mind that the schemes cannot run the healthcare system. So there are several schemes, but only based on the schemes you cannot run the healthcare system more efficiently. What is required is right to health. That is more important. That will realize all the goals and objectives which the government has. Just schemes are not sufficient, but they cannot sufficient for a time being. For the long run, you need right to health. That is one thing. Second thing is that too much of dependence upon the private sector should not happen. Government should also have its own initiative to ensure that the health becomes more accessible, affordable, available, timely, and also in terms of quality. But the third important aspect which I try to emphasize is that the National Health Policy of 2017 and also the Economic Survey of 2021 also talked about that the government should commit towards spending 2.5 to 3% of the GDP on health. So that should be realized. The government should commit towards that one, and they should increase the spending on health, which is very important. Then only we can realize right to health, right to health. Then apart from this, also we can see that India is now becoming one of the top 10 countries when it comes to medical tourism. So if you see the international global medical tourism index, India is ranked among the 10. So a lot of medical facilities are being provided for the more than 40 patients from 40 countries are coming to India, and they are making great progress, and India is becoming a hub for medical tourism. So on the one hand, we are making great progress, but at the same time, we also have to keep in mind that the medical facilities are also required for the local population. So that kind of infrastructure development should also happen at the local level so that they become stronger. I think our health index also will improve at the global level, at the national level, and also it will contribute for the nation building process. Finally, I conclude by saying that this is a golden opportunity for the present government that to translate the right to health as a fundamental right. Why it is a golden opportunity is that first thing is that the present government, Narendra Modi government, is in a comfortable position with regard to political stability. Having a majority in the parliament, it's always a blessing for the government to come up with key policies and programs. So converting this right to health as a fundamental right, this is going to be an easy task because there is always a support by the opposition parties, and also by the health activists that they are going to support it. And that way this will become a reality. The second most important thing is also that there is always a voices for right to health. So there are a lot of people from cutting across party line, cutting across different sections of the society, wants the health as a top priority, and they can really do it. So this again, there is a push. There's no negative wave against it. There's always a positive wave in realizing this right to health. So that is also one. Third important thing is that it's a golden opportunity because COVID-19 has completely exposed the India's vulnerability with regard to the healthcare system. Not just India, even the Western countries are also big. Healthcare system has been badly exposed. So this can be used as an opportunity to come out with the right to health as a fundamental right, which is going to address the majority of the problem because many people are below poverty because of their spending on health. So if your government takes care of the health spending, I think the poverty, people who are living below the poverty line also will gradually decline. So overall, right to health should be made as a fundamental right. There's no doubt about it, and government has to make serious efforts, not just keeping the vote bank politics, but move beyond and to ensure that the India becomes truly global player at the international level. So thank you one and all. Thanks for your patience, and I'll be very happy to receive any questions or clarification in this regard. Thank you one and all.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This was really enlightening. So now moving ahead, I would like to call Dr. Reva ma'am for our second lecture. Over to you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. I really feel honored and welcome you all for taking a keen part in this important program. I'm sure that you all will feel enriched with knowledge after the completion of this event. And so finally, I welcome you all. And thank you, Surinder sir, for enlightening us with this topic. This is very important topic now these days. Actually, after the COVID, this pandemic situation has arisen. I feel that now the people are more concerned about their rights and their main concern, like what all benefits they can get it from the government. So I'll start because this topic, as sir has already given you people all the overview of this topic. So my mainly concern will be related to the legal aspects. So I'll give you with a very brief introduction. What do you exactly mean with the right to health as a fundamental right? So right to health is a part and a parcel of right to life. So, and therefore, right to health is a fundamental right guaranteed to every citizen. Here, I would like to quote it like it's for every citizen, right? So, of India under Article 21. In Article 21, we talk about of the Constitution of India, we talk about right to life. So, this is, and in this, I'll be focusing why access to healthcare needs to be a fundamental right. So with this, I'll start with an example because I want to give you the exact picture. How does it all things happen? So for this, I need to make you understand with an example. So I'll be quoting an example which was recently given in the newspaper of the Indian Express. So I'll be quoting from there. So that can make you people easier to understand what we as a speakers want to make you understand from this topic. So the constitutional right to health is a critical to breaking discriminatory structure that will otherwise continue to perpetuate inequality in all the spheres of life. So here I would like to quote with example. There was a lady called Gulabo. She lay her head on my lap, pleading, Bhaiya mujhe bacha lo. Brother, please save me. And soon after took her last breath. Just 2 days ago, I had a fear her and her family was intergenerational bondage at a brick kiln in Mahendragarh. There's a place called Mahendragarh in Haryana. So I'm quoting this example from there. She died of a severe tuberculosis and malnutrition. Overcome by an anger and grief after I had cremated Gulabo body, I walked up on the road till I reached the chamber, erstwhile senior judge of the Supreme Court of India. His name was Justice J.P.N. Bhagwati. So 2 years after this meeting, the landmark judicial order in 1984 in Bandhu Mukti Bachao, that is Bandhua Mukti Bachao, versus Union of Indian established that the respect to the workers, the constitutional right to life is inclusive to the right to health. At the time, I served the General Secretary of Bandhua Mukti Morcha. Justice Bhagwati has moved by the plight of Gulabo and many others in the situation similar to the slavery, and brought up the light of the limitation of the country healthcare system to serve the poorest hospital beds, medicine. And this was the reality. The reality is actually a sticker today. 40 years after Gulabo, innumerable children are still dying from the lack of health cares. Amidst the pandemic, the frantic cries of oxygen, hospital beds, medicine, and even a place to cremate their own laid bare our failure to extend dignity in both life and death. Now, compound this with the loss of income debit and food insecurity, illiteracy. This is the situation of lakhs of families. This is not, I'm just talking about only Gulabo. It's a lakhs of families in India who are actually going with this situation these days, or in starting also and till now. So they said that the most profound loss of people faith in ability to the country's healthcare system to protect them. It is a primary responsibility of the elected representative to retain the faith, this faith, because people are actually losing their faith now. Why? Because they are not getting the actual requirements which they are supposed to get. The right to equality guaranteed under Article 15 upholds non-discrimination on the basis of religion, race, caste, gender, place of birth, etc. However, the dismal investment in public health for decades has made healthcare a privilege available to a few. The constitutional right to health is critical, and it's actually breaking the discriminatory structures that will otherwise continue to perpetuate inequality in all the spheres of life, including your education, your opportunity, your wealth, and your social mobility. The judicial interpretation of the right to life, liberty under Article 21. It's actually in the several judgment and inclusive of health was crucial, but that has its own limitations. The universal access to healthcare is now as an achievable and it is an indicible. The right of people are not stagnant and must evolve as the country evolves. Ayushman Bharat is an ambitious scheme with a great potential, but there is difference between the rights and the service delivery model of the development. If health is a fundamental right, it will give you a spine to the entire health, your ecosystem, right? Your empowered doctors, your healthcare workers, and ensure transparency and accountability. Moreover, it will be paved the way of a special legislation, right? And your capable institution, increased budget, medical training and research, and prevention and outreach of the services, thereby instilling immense confidence and positivity amongst the citizen. If there is not if the people are not even they don't have the positive vibes inside them, so it's very difficult, and it's very difficult to make them understand that this is all for you people. If they are losing their confidence, if they are losing their trust on the medical facilities and everything, so it's very difficult for them to make them realize that these are your rights, these are your fundamental rights, which actually you can avail it. So we need fundamental shift in our approach of healthcare. Instead of viewing it as a spending, we have to see it as a high yield of investment that can considerably cut down failure, pocket cost, and increase output. So the evidence is before us today as we scramble to deal with the monumental health crisis crumbling healthcare system. We are witnessing its grave economic impact. If the current healthcare model does not change, we risk finding our children in the same situation. Why I'm making it more on with the pressure, I'm telling you all this because I'm focusing on these points because if we are not going to start working on these lines, so our future generations are even going to face the same situation like we people are facing, or maybe it can be the worse. So our collective suffering can be transferred into a long lasting change. In the past few weeks, I have written to urge to the Prime Minister and every member of Parliament to consider the recommendation. Many MPs have come forward in unity, but the universal access to healthcare is now too achievable as it is indivisible. This is the time for a constitution amendment to make health as a fundamental right. We in India is facing defining moment in its history, and our children will pay the price of for our choices today. At this point, I remind Gandhiji's talisman: whenever you are in doubt or whenever you self become too much with you, apply the following test. Recall the face, the poorest and the weakest man or woman whom you may have seen, and ask yourself if the step competent in going to be any use for to him or her. Let it be our guiding light. So from this, we come to know it's all like the fundamental rights we as Indians we need to have, and it doesn't depend on any race or any caste or anything which is defining your background or something like that. No, it's not required. Being as an Indian citizen, being as a citizen of India, you need to have all these rights with you. So I think there was a question in one of the chats here. So I would like to address that question. Like, does this rights actually are for some people or they are for everyone? No, it's for everyone. Being as a citizen, as I'm putting again and again, being as a citizen of India, you people have all the rights with you. So it doesn't matter from where you are, from which society you are, either you're belonging to elite society, middle class, or something like that. No, it's not required. It's just that you need to know your rights. You need to tell them that this is your right, and nobody can stop you to get these rights from you. Okay, so I really wanted to quote this example so that you people understand like what we are trying to tell you on this such an important day. So I hope from this you would get to know that it's not only that we are just talking about, but we are actually concerned about. So this is the time India declared the right to health as a fundamental right. Strong health laws will build societal resilience to the future pandemics. Like, we should be prepared for the future pandemics. It's not only this COVID is going to stop here. Definitely, there will be other variants, other like I can say it's like other pandemic situations. We need to be prepared, mentally prepared. If we are not mentally prepared, so definitely it's not like if your health is not there, so your mind will stop working. You won't be working as long as like you are going to work in a normal situation. So you should be prepared for the worst situation also. So now we need to train ourselves to face the situation in the worst conditions also. So public health emergencies responses cannot come at the cost of neglect of human rights obligation. It is critical that the right to health is implemented using the principles of transparency, proportionality, and solidarity. The COVID-19 experience has also demonstrated the importance of a decentralized, polycentric responses. India's cooperative federalism, therefore, must be strengthened. Thank you all. I hope I have given important information which you as a students, you as a participants should know about it. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so
Thank you so much, ma'am.
It was
Yeah, over
really
to you.
enlightening, and now we are open for question and answer round. I request all the participants, if they have any queries, they can type it in the chat box or they can raise their hand.
Yeah, so in the chat box, there are 2-3 questions. I'll just quickly respond. The first one is that whether there are any special rights or exclusive rights for the privileged or underprivileged. That's what the question is, if I'm right. So basically, see, all rights are the same. Okay, so irrespective of the caste, creed, or gender, or nationality, all rights remain the same. So only the state has an obligation to work towards ensuring these rights are applicable to all the sections of the society. But in a society like India or any part of the society, there is diversification. Society is not equal. So to ensure that equality, you have all these kinds of rights. So there's no exclusive special right. There are rights for example, refugees. There are rights for the migrants. There are refugees for the transgender. There are rights for the marginalized communities. So all these are there, but all rights are one and the same. There's no any kind of discrimination. Only thing the states have an obligation to ensure that everybody enjoys these rights equally. So that is the only thing we can see. Second thing is that COVID-19 is, of course, as I told in my last point of my presentation, that COVID-19 has come as an opportunity. It's a big challenge for every country, no doubt about it. But still, we can convert these challenges to an opportunity by taking this as a critical aspect and try to declare right to health as a fundamental right. Because COVID-19, we know it's going to stay here. There are variants now and then keep coming. It's not very easy to fight this COVID-19. But nevertheless, we can be well prepared, and also we can prevent the number of deaths which are happening because of COVID-19, the number of health diseases which are spreading because of COVID-19. All the things can be controlled, provided we declare this right to health. Not just declaring that is the first step. After that, there should be adequate infrastructure back for it so that that can be implemented. Resources, workforce, infrastructure, all the three should be there. Then only right to health can be more effective. And the third question is that right to health is, are there any right to health exclusive for women? There's nothing like right to health. Women would be a component in the right to health. So right to health provisions, there are different sections, as I told you about safe food or safe drinking water, sanitation, then health education and information, gender equality, so the housing. So several aspects come into picture when we talk about right to health. So there is a section on women also. Women health is also very important. Girl health is also very important. So there might be specific reference to women, but there's no right to health for women as such. It is general right to health for men and women, for everybody. But only thing is that there are men, women, or transgender, all sections of the society. But there is, within that, there are different sections or provisions which deals with women, which deals with the child, which deals with the adult also. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I would like to answer. There was a question. Then, what was the main Article 21 talks about, right? So, main Article 21 of the Constitution of India talks about the protection of life and personal liberty. It states that no person shall be deprived of his life or personal liberty except according to the procedure established by the law. So basically, it talks about two secures, right? First is your right to life, and second is your right to personal liberty. It's okay, it's fine. Now, as sir has mentioned that there is no right against like to the women rights, there are a lot of sections which actually talks about. So here I would just want to add one small thing, that according to right to health of women and children, we have Article 21, which affirms that everyone has right of standard of living inadequate for the health and well-being himself and his family. So it's not actually talking this fundamental rights, it's for everyone. So it's not just like it's for women. There are special sections which are actually talking about women, children, and all together. So it's include, as sir has mentioned, that it includes sanitation, hygiene, fooding, housing, medical care. So it's a necessary social services, which is Article 25 is talking about. I hope this is fine. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. There is one more question.
Yeah.
Why should be the right to health become the most important amongst all rights?
Okay. See, when I started with my talk, I just talked about that this is one of the important concern of human beings, right? If, for example, suppose if I am not well, right? I'm not well and I have to do a lot of jobs. I have a lot of tasks in front of me. So when I'm not well, so do you think that I'll be able to complete those tasks? No, I won't be. It's not only health is actually in center. It's if I take a circle, suppose if I take a circle, so health is actually the core part of the human beings, and rest of the rights, rest of the things are actually in the peripheries. If your core is always right at a position, if your core you are taking better care, if the core you are taking the responsibility, if you are looking after so well, so all other rights will be, all other things in your periphery will work accordingly. Is it okay, or you want me to give you more examples to explain it?
Yes, ma'am, it's clear. I
It's
like
clear?
to give answer of this question. There is one more question, sir.
Yeah.
That is, what is the role of Supreme Court or High Court in this regard?
Okay, see, okay. First thing is there was also one question in the chat box on right to health with regard to in the villages and the uneducated. Basically, we have to keep in mind, right, the whole argument about why we need right to health as a fundamental right is basically to bridge the gap which is there between the rich and the poor in terms of accessing with regard to the urban people and the poor people. There's a gap with regard to accessing healthcare. With regard to the caste factors, with regard to the religious factor, there's a wide gap. To fill up this gap, only we need right to health, you can say. So right to health is all about not just catering to the urban areas and the elite people. It is also for the rural population, and whether they are educated or not educated, doesn't matter. It is basically targeting the entire population which are lacking behind with regard to the accessing of health. That is a one. So it is a universal one. It's a universal free healthcare system. It's all about the right to health emphasizes, we can see. Then the other thing is that we have to keep in mind that right to health is also complementary to all the other rights. It's not that right to health is the most important one or the number one right, we can say, because all the rights are complementary to each other. Right to education is important, so is right to health, so is right to information, so is right to peace, so is right to a healthy environment. So you name it anything, so all becomes very important and vital. So we cannot say that one right is supreme. Although man rightly pointed out why health becomes a core aspect, but overall, if you see, all the rights are equal on an equal footing. So it's very important that one. Then apart from this, there are several Supreme Court and High Court judgments which have been there, which has always come up with regard to the, not that directly referring to right to health as such, but they talk about the condition of the health workers. Okay, so healthcare workers' conditions, all the workers or employees in the factories and industries, so their health becomes important. So as Madam has rightly pointed out, we can see not just the Article 21 also talks. There are several other articles within the Constitution which also refers to the health aspect. So that is also becomes important, whether it is article, you can see Article 39, then Article 42, Article 47, Article 243G. So invariably, Article 243 talks about how panchayat and municipalities have a major role in public health. So there are several provisions within the Constitution itself, and apart from these, directive principles are also there. So where these health aspects figures. So all these are already there, but still you need to have more comprehensive, and that's where right to health becomes important. And these are all also based on certain Supreme Court and the High Court judgment, which has come with regard to the health issues. So they have done, I think more Reva would be in a better position to highlight on this important Supreme Court judgments which directly deals with the health issues.
Thank you so much, sir.
So thank you very much. It's a really wonderful session. So first of all, it's my honor to be asked for the vote of thanks on the occasion of International Symposium organized in the collaboration with Tumkur University. On the behalf of SEAMS and Tumkur University, I'm very grateful to Dr. Reva and Dr. Surendra for sharing their graceful views with us on the right or to health as a fundamental right in the occasion of Human Rights Day. We are also thankful to the Honorable Vice Chancellor of Tumkur University, Colonel Professor Y.S. Siddhagoda, for providing opportunity to host the event International Symposium. And also I'm very thankful to the entire management team, Dr. Valmiki, Dr. Mahailinga, Dr. Joy, Dr. Nitendra, Ms. Shivani, Ms. Ritu, Mr. Tarandeep, Ms. Vandana, as well as the people who are not, I named it, but they have also helped us to make this event successful. I'm also thankful for the participant for coming here and attending this event. We have been fortunate to have a renowned identity from the academics industry as well as the other areas. I think I'm very much pretty sure that our association will continue to get significant provisions for diverse events in the future. And with this note, I would be thanking you all and thank you very much with Indian culture.
Thank you, one and all. Okay, thank you, Ritu.
Thank you, sir.
Now over to you, Ritu.
And thank you so much, all the participants, for joining. We hope you to see in our other webinars also. And thank you all the speakers to be with here. And it is very great pleasure for us that you have joined this webinar and share your time and knowledge with us. Thank you so much.